people back up. Clearly, they've got all the signs on that front. So I do see an awakening happening. But you're right. The level of tyranny we will live under, as Thomas Jefferson said, is the exact amount we'll put up with. So now that they're so cornered like rats, you've said they implode the economy, then they start a war to distract everybody. But do you think that's going to work? I mean, even most of the Israelis don't want a war.
It will work. You know, we sent out a trend alert. We wrote about Ryan in last year, you got it, last summer's Trends Journal, that whole one about direct democracy. And we had a thing, we even had Ryan's weenie mobile. And we showed what a little nobody this guy is, and why would anybody listen to this jerk who never did a damn thing in his life. And I love the term they give, lawmakers. I don't need a lawmaker. Who made that? Would you go to school for lawmaking? Anyway.
Well, it's like they're Moses or something. That's where that comes from, the great lawgiver. Yeah.
And so here this guy, we wrote all about him. So we sent out a piece. We also had in that piece, remember that guy, as we wrote about the Wienermobile, we wrote about the other Wiener, Richard Wiener, the guy that got caught, you know, showing his stuff off on TV, on the internet. We wrote about both of them. You should see, this is a year ago, people writing to us, canceling their subscriptions because we said what they didn't like about Ryan. We could go after Obama, they don't care. But you go after their ideologue, and boy, do they get tight. If you don't like their freak, there's something wrong with you. My freak is better than your freak. Oh, the Romney freak is better than the Obama freak. How come you don't like my freak? It's a freak show. How could any adult look at this adolescent act that they call the presidential reality show and buy into it? It's a disgrace.
Well said. Shifting gears to the war front and other areas that deal with that, Syrian rebels, who've always been al-Qaeda-led, warn they will turn to al-Qaeda if the West fails them. And they also say that our troops have to grow the opium or al-Qaeda will get it. I mean, I guess now they'll need your daughters as well, or al-Qaeda will get them. You know, let the globalists have their way with them, or al-Qaeda will pilfer them. Continuing, Israel urges U.S. decision on Iran strike. Ynet News. Here's another one. Israel minister warns of 30-day war with Iran. You mentioned that at the start of the interview. Khomeini, Zionist regime will disappear from map. Israel military blast heard in southern city. Rockets believed to be falling. 7 American soldiers dead in Afghan chopper crash. They never get shot down. It's always a chopper crash. Yeah. Continuing, all of this is going on. And then the economic news, even Fox News runs the headline, the coming economic collapse, and breaks down the numbers. Again, they've always known this because they're imploding it to take over. But the fact that they're now admitting they're getting ready for a collapse, what's your time frame on that? I mean, I know you're in generalities because no one knows exactly. But, I mean, we're talking about this fall, next year. Max Kaiser says by next April. Because then
it could happen next week. You see, they keep coming up with these schemes. Like, nobody knew about the $26 trillion that the Fed was pumping into the system. Nobody knew that they were rigging the rates and lying about with LIBOR to cover up the damage. So it's all rigged.
It's all rigged, but the real economy is dying.
Yeah, so the timeline is really, really difficult to go on. But here's the, you know, you mentioned about, you know, how the media looks at me. You know, I know people in the media, and they all tell me, you know, and I have friends that, you know, that are agents and different people, and they say, every time they mention my name, they say, no, you know, wait, he scares people what he has to say. You know, we don't want to hear that. You know, he unsettles people. Oh, I don't want to unsettle anybody.
No, but exactly. That's a badge of distinction and honor, a red badge of courage that I've had Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Washington Post, all with reporters here. To the point of now, I go, no, you can't come to a profile. I don't care if your editor said it's allowed to go out. People above that will kill it because they think not recognizing us keeps us down. It's the opposite. If you ever recognize us, it would hurt us. You are like poison, garbage. You're the plague. I'm running from you. And the point is they always call back after they've been here and they go, you're right. They killed it from the corporate above the editors. And I'm like, exactly. So now I say, oh, the editor says you can come to town. I know it's a hit piece. I don't mind a hit piece. That helps me when you attack me. But I said, do this. Have your editor go above the corporate. Just so, and they go, oh my gosh, you're right. I had the Washington Post call me a few weeks ago, this big writer. And I'm like, oh no, anything I've ever done gets published. And I said, okay, go ahead and write your article. He goes, it'll be this Sunday, you watch. Never was in the paper. Because again, they're scared and they act like we're the ones destroying confidence. No. The Chinese government won't buy U.S. stocks anymore because they know it's rigged. That's why. We're not in fact, I get this a lot. I see this about you, but I get this a lot. I'm causing the problems. I'm the reason there's a loss of confidence. Don't listen to that guy or we'll have a depression. Hey, I got news for you. 4 years ago, we passed the Rubicon by every real economic standard. I've had countless economists on. I've researched it. We were in a depression 4 years ago, okay? Okay, I'm not doing it because I'm right. It's not Gerald's fault that he's right. We're trying to pull this country out of it. I like what Gerald says. Most people I know are trying to leave the country. It's global. You're not leaving, folks. It's going worldwide. I'm staying here. I'm fighting. Go ahead, Gerald. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're right on. Here, this is why. Remember that? The prostitutes. The prostitutes. That's all they are. There's not a man among them, barely a man in Congress, nobody in the Senate, certainly nobody in the executive offices. It's a freak show. And look, all right, they're going to have the presidential debates. Did you see the lineup of prostitutes that get to ask them the questions? I mean, come on. One of them's Bob Schieffer. Bob Schieffer. You know what Bob Schieffer's last question and the Bush-Kerry debate? I went berserk on it. His goes like this. He goes, the three of us have something in common. We're all married to strong women. And I said, how the hell did you get into this thing? Who gives a damn? That was the last question of the debate.
They're a bunch of preening peacocks on the deck of the Titanic as it's listing. We're getting in lifeboats, and they're telling us we're crazy as people are falling into the icy water. They are. It's like Rome is burning, and they're going to press dinners, preening themselves and throwing out politically correct lines about women. Throw a bone or something.
Yeah, and you look at the list of who's asking these questions. I mean, give me a break. Hey, let's get this straight, everybody. This is not a democracy. You got it? You're run by a mob. They like to call themselves Democrats and Republicans.
Stay there. We got to go to break. Gerald Celente, straight ahead. Dave Mustaine and more. We've got Richard Belzer, movie star, TV star, writer, talking about staged government killings they blame on other people. Wow. And then the last 10 minutes of the show, we're going to have an exclusive interview I did during the first hour. I ran a tape and went and taped it with Dave because he wanted to talk to me before we went on air a few minutes. That's going to air, and that's a big national story. He'll clarify his statement. In fact, we're going to tweet this out right now at twitter.com/RealAlexJones. Dave Mustaine to clarify. I'm having to write this on air right now. I'm having to multitask like nobody you know, folks. I'm like a cook, dishwasher, waiter, you name it around here. I mean, basically, you've seen the headlines with Dave Mustaine. We're going back to Gerald Celente here in just a moment. Basically, the tweet I'm going to put out is, because I know Chrissy's in there listening, about to send it out. Pretty much all the tweets, I end up writing them, but sometimes I write them, like telling somebody what to tweet out. I'm going to basically, you know what, I'll give her that tweet in a moment. After I can codify my thoughts, I'll do that during the break. I'll just tweet it myself. Shoot. Going back to Gerald Celente. Gerald, thank you so much for the time today. We got 5 minutes left here. I've asked a lot of the questions. What else is front and center on your radar right now that you'd like to tell people about?
Well, the big one, of course, is what's going on in the Middle East. Another one, September 12th is going to be a big day. You asked me the timeline on collapse. That's the day that the German Supreme Court is supposed to rule on whether or not it's constitutional for the German government to be into the mechanisms, they call them, that are dumping all of this, funneling all this money into bail out the troubled countries. And it's also another element of that lawsuit that they'll be deciding. And the German Supreme Court ostensibly is not a politically rigged court like the one we have here. That's what they say. We'll see by their deeds. And the other issue is whether or not the Germans are actually going to lose their sovereignty as well as the rest of the Europeans by putting the banking structures completely into Brussels. So, how the Supreme Court of Germany rules on September 12th on whether or not they could continue in these bailout funds and these emergency funds and these bond buying schemes is going to determine the future of the euro. Because if they say, which it is, by the way, unconstitutional, as it is established by the German Constitution to continue like this, Germany's the only one holding it up. That means the whole Eurozone collapses. Number two, again, I am not giving financial advice, just to make this clear. My timeline on gold. Gold today is up about $13 as we speak. Gold has to break above 1670, I believe. It's about 13 now. It has to go about 1670. And then the next hit up to that is 1750. Once it goes over 1750, it's back to the 2000 mark. And it could happen overnight, particularly if the psychopaths start a war with Iran. I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I will say it over and over again. This will begin World War III. The entire Middle East will explode. You know how now that Al-Qaeda is fighting against the Assad regime in Syria and on and on? They will all unite. Sunni, Shia, Alawite, Christian, they will all unite against Israel if Israel... I
tell you what, we got to go to break. Richard Belzer's coming up, but stay there. 2 more minutes with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now into the third hour. Coming up, we're going to have an exclusive Dave Mustaine statement on the international firestorm that's in hundreds of newspapers and TV stations. Also up at our Twitter account, Real Alex Jones, we've got a link to a photo of the police pulling over a Google car for spying on people illegally. We're going to be going over that some later. Gerald Celente, just a few minutes left with you. Thank you so much. Trendsjournal.com, trendsresearch.com. Finishing up, you were getting into the chain reaction of World War III that could be triggered by unifying the Arabs if there's an attack on Iran. That's why most of the people in the Israeli military know it's not a good idea. You also have the globalists trying to launch a proxy war using Al-Qaeda against Shiites and people in different areas of the Middle East. So the globalists want a civil war, but you're saying an Iran war will bring them together.
Oh, you know, it's that Bedouin saying, that old Bedouin saying, you know, me against my brother and I against our cousin, my brother, my cousin and I against our neighbor, and all of us against the foreigner. You know, I'm not making this up. This is as old as history. And that's what it will be. It will be and the entire Middle East will go up in flames. It's already going up. Look what's going on over in Egypt. Look at Tunisia. Go over to Morocco. Look at Bahrain. Look at Yemen. Look at Syria. If they explode this, it's in flames. It's only a madman would conceive this. And there are plenty of them out there to conceive it. They're called politicians, presidents, chancellors, all of the rest of them, prime ministers, psychopaths, sociopaths, megalomaniacs. Vote. Don't forget to vote.
What's the time frame, do you think, on an Iran strike? Do you think they're getting closer to that, or is there a way to stop it?
You know, I just did an interview with in the Israeli press. The people there are very concerned. And there's an element in this, and again, you can't put the timeline on. Again, it's all politics. And right now, Netanyahu, over 60% of the people disapprove of him. So they do desperate things because these people, again, they range between psychopath, megalomaniac, sociopath, and nobodies that want to be somebodies. They're all power hungry. So I don't know the timeline. The timeline that's being